Hey there, my sexy Skepticons. This is your boy, Adam of Nola, and today we are doing another episode of God-Free Bible Study. Today we are going to finish another book. This book that we're finishing today is the book of Joshua. Feels like just yesterday that we finished Deuteronomy and the Pentateuch, and now we are plowing through another book. Now, to be fair, part of the reason that we've been able to plow through Joshua so quickly is because there's a lot of material here that we are skipping over. As always, anytime I skip something, I tell you what we're skipping and why I feel the need to skip it. If you don't like the fact that we're skipping it, you can always open BibleGateway or any other personal Bible in print or whatever, and you can pull up these chapters and verses yourself, because I always let you know what we are skipping. So, technically speaking, we're starting today with Joshua 19, although we're not really starting with Joshua 19, because Joshua 19 is Joshua casting lots for the territories that will be all of these different tribes. And if you watched the last episode, you know this already, but these descriptions of these territories are long, and they're just a whole bunch of different cities and, you know, the top of this mountain and the river here and this town and blah, blah, blah. They go to great lengths to try to explain in a verbal format what the territory is that belongs to each of these tribes. Now, I do understand from a legalistic perspective, it's very hard to explain someone's territory. If I said, okay, let's look at the state of Missouri, for example. Of course, you can look at a map today and you can see what the boundaries are for Missouri. But if I actually tried to explain in a document without having a map, but if I tried to explain in a document, what are the boundaries of Missouri? Where does everything start and stop, each line, etc.? That would be very difficult to do. And that's essentially what they're doing here, spending a lot of ink and a lot of parchment doing this here in Joshua. So we're going to skip Joshua 19. Feel free to pull it up yourself if you want to know all these territories. Although I'll just tell you what the headers are in this. Joshua 19 is the territory of Simeon, the territory of Zebulun, territory of Issachar, the territory of Asher, the territory of Naphtali, the territory of Dan, and Joshua's inheritance. So when you read through all of that, and it's a mouthful, you will have finished Joshua 19. You will not have missed any of the narrative of the Bible, any of the commands or moral plays or what have you. But if you want to pull that up, please do. I always like to read almost all of the Bible, but there are places like this where I have skipped parts and I don't feel bad doing it if I'm telling you why I'm skipping them. So we're going to start in with the reading at Joshua 20, actually. This is the cities of refuge. Yay. Then the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, "Say to the Israelites, appoint the cities of refuge, of which I spoke to you through Moses, so that anyone who kills a person without intent or by mistake may flee there. They shall be for you a refuge from the avenger of blood. The slayer shall flee to one of these cities and shall stand at the entrance of the gate of the city and explain the case to the elders of that city. Then the fugitive shall be taken into the city and given a place and shall remain with them. And if the avenger of blood is in pursuit, they shall not give up the slayer because the neighbor was killed by mistake, there having been no enmity between them before. The slayer shall remain in that city until there is a trial before the congregation, until the death of the one who is high priest at the time. Then the slayer may return home to the town in which the deed was done." So they set apart Kadesh in Galilee, in the hill country of Naphtali, and Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. And beyond the Jordan east of Jericho, they appointed Bezer in the wilderness on the tableland, from the tribe of Reuben, and Ramoth in Gilead, from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan, from the tribe of Manasseh. These were the cities designated for all the Israelites and for the aliens residing among them, that anyone who killed a person without intent could flee there, so as not to die by the hand of the avenger of blood until there was a trial before the congregation. my only note on all of that is, oh my freaking gosh, we get it. Okay. Like, I've gone through this in other episodes, in previous chapters and books. It's weird, this fascination and this repetition we get in the text for the cities of refuge. They are outlined in numerous cases, and they go to great length to explain how they work and why they're there. I still think they sound weird, but I can give a little deference here and say it was a different time, whatever. But it's just weird, the amount of time that they spend in the text going through this again and again and again. So I read that because I felt like we should at least cover that. But yeah, so much for that. Now moving on to Joshua 21. So Joshua 21 is the cities allotted to the Levites. Like so much of this other geographic stuff, we're going to skip a large part of this because it spends a ton of ink telling us about which cities will be the Levite cities and where they are located and what the boundaries are and blah, 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 blah. The only part I'm going to read from Joshua 21 is the last the last paragraph. Thus the Lord gave to Israel all the land that he swore to their ancestors that he would give them, and having taken possession of it, they settled there. And the Lord gave them rest on every side, just as he had sworn to their ancestors. Not one of all their enemies had withstood them, for the Lord had given all their enemies into their hands. Not one of all the good promises that the Lord had made to the house of Israel had failed. All came to pass. That's a lie. That's just a lie. I mean, if I want to be as charitable about this as I can be, you can say that they got all of the land that they were supposed to get. I think that that is spelled out clearly here in the text. But they were also told that the people that were inhabiting the land before would be driven out before them. And yet in the previous chapters of Joshua, they made it clear that in some places there were still Jebusites and there were still Canaanites in multiple places. The big bad of the Bible, the Canaanites, like, ooh, they're horrible people. But they were still there in the land. Now, granted, in some places it said that the Canaanites were made to do forced labor, so it's not like they had a really great lot in life. And you can argue, well, if the Israelites occupied all of the land, that certainly is giving them the Holy Land, so to speak. But that is not all that God promised. God promised that he would drive these people out before him. So we end on another one of these retconning, and Joshua 21, on another one of these retconning sentences where it says, not one of all the good promises that the Lord had made to the house of Israel had failed. All came to pass. I'm seeing this pattern more and more as we got to the end of the Pentateuch and now into Joshua, where there's something that we read prior, usually like several books or many chapters before, and it clearly seemed to say X. And then later on, we get this sentence that clearly seems to contradict it. It says Y. And it only makes sense from the perspective that it's like propaganda. It's like, even though they've written in their own holy text that this thing happened previously, then it's like they can smooth over it with a propaganda machine by saying later on, but see, that's not really what happened. It happened differently. Like we saw this with Balaam, where Balaam listened to God and, did not curse the Israelites because God told him not to. And then later we hear all this horrible stuff about Balaam, how he's this horrible guy. And it doesn't make sense. When you read the initial account from Numbers, it sounds like Balaam was actually maybe not a Jew, but he was absolutely listening to Yahweh and following Yahweh's commands. And yet later on, they then write this other stuff that just tries to paper over it. It's like they're retconning inside their own book, and it's so bizarre to me. Joshua 22 starts off with the eastern tribes return to their territory. Then Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, "You have observed all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and have obeyed me in all that I have commanded you. You have not forsaken your kindred these many days, down to this day, but have been careful to keep the charge of the Lord your God. And now the Lord your God has given rest to your kindred, as he promised them. Therefore turn and go to your tents in the land where your possession lies, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you on the other side of the Jordan. Take good care to observe the commandment and instruction that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, to keep his commandments, and to hold fast to him, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their tents. Now to the one half of the tribe of Manasseh, Moses had given a possession in Bashan, but to the other half, Joshua had given a possession beside their fellow Israelites in the land west of the Jordan. And when Joshua sent them away to their tents and blessed them, he said to them, Go back to your tents with much wealth and with very much livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and with a great quantity of clothing. Divide the spoil of your enemies with your kindred. So the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh returned home, parting from the Israelites at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan, to go to the land of Gilead, their own land of which they had taken possession by command of the Lord through Moses. So the half-tribe of Manasseh got their land. A memorial altar east of the Jordan. Brace yourself, because this shit gets really weird. When they came to the region near the Jordan that lies in the land of Canaan, the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh built there an altar by the Jordan, an altar of great size. The Israelites heard that the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh had built an altar opposite the land of Canaan in the region near the Jordan across from the Israelites. And when the people of Israel heard of it, the whole assembly of the Israelites gathered at Shiloh to make war against them. So this is another one of those weird non sequiturs. Like it just makes no sense going from one chapter or one paragraph to the next. So we just heard that the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh were basically released to, Joshua was saying, okay, now go to your ancestral lands, or what will become your ancestral lands. Go to those lands that were promised to you. Like, we've conquered everyone. Now go inhabit those lands, which are east of the Jordan. So they go to those lands, and then immediately afterwards, we get this narrative that says they went there and they built an altar. And the Israelites heard that they built an altar, so then they decided that they were going to make war against them. This is one of those areas where I would love for someone who understands the history of this, not an apologist, but someone who actually understands the history of this time to maybe provide some insight here, because it doesn't say they created an altar to Molech, who isn't really a god, but that's a different question. It doesn't say that they made an altar to Baal or to Asherah or to any other god beside Yahweh. It just says they made an altar. They're east of the Jordan, which means that their land abuts that of regular Israel, but still they're not right in the same area that's called the Holy Land, right? So of course they want to have an altar. If you said to them, follow all the commandments and still keep following Yahweh and, stay true to the Lord and all this other stuff, why wouldn't they want to have an altar? Now, some of this, maybe I just don't understand, because I do know, there used to be the temple, right? And once they built the temple, I don't think that there were temples all throughout the land. I think there was one temple in Jerusalem, although I could be wrong on that. So it'd be one thing if maybe they said, we're building our own separate temple, I guess. But it doesn't say that. It says they built an altar. And it does say it's of great size, but who cares? I mean, if you follow Yahweh and you want to build an altar to Yahweh, how is that wrong? I don't understand it. But we get this narrative where it says they built an altar of great size, and then the Israelites heard about it and they said, let's go make war against them. Okay. Then the Israelites sent the priest Phinehas, son of Eleazar, to the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, and with him 10 chiefs, one from each of the tribal families of Israel, every one of them the head of a family among the clans of Israel. They came to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, and they said to them, "Thus says the whole congregation of the Lord, what is this treachery that you have committed against the God of Israel in turning away today from following the Lord, by building yourselves an altar today in rebellion against the Lord? Have we not had enough of the sin at Peor, from which even yet we have not cleansed ourselves, and for which a plague came upon the congregation of the Lord, that you must turn away today from following the Lord? If you rebel against the Lord today, he will be angry with the whole congregation of Israel tomorrow. But now, if your land is unclean, cross over into the Lord's land, where the Lord's tabernacle now stands, and take for yourselves a possession among us. Only do not rebel against the Lord or rebel against us by building yourselves an altar other than the altar of the Lord our God. Did not Achan, son of Zerah, break faith in the matter of the devoted things, and wrath fell upon all the congregation of Israel? And he did not perish alone for his iniquity." So they're giving this long speech here, and they're essentially accusing the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh of turning away from the Lord. But the previous paragraph said nothing about turning away from the Lord. If you want me, the reader, to believe that the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh were turning away from the Lord, you can't tell me just that they made an altar. Because the logical idea that flows from that is, so you made an altar. That doesn't mean you turned away from the Lord. People that follow the Lord and worship the Lord make altars all the time. So how is this somehow turning away from the Lord? And you'll see it's not just me that has that impression, because let's keep reading. Then the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh said in answer to the heads of the families of Israel, "The Lord, God of gods, the Lord, God of gods, he knows, and let Israel itself know. If it was in rebellion or in breach of faith toward the Lord, do not spare us today for building an altar to turn away from following the Lord. Or if we did so to offer burnt offerings or grain offerings or offerings of well-being on it, may the Lord himself take vengeance. No, we did it from fear that in time to come your children might say to our children, 'What have you to do with the Lord, the God of Israel?' For the Lord has made the Jordan a boundary between us and you, you Reubenites and Gadites. You have no portion in the Lord. So your children might make our children cease to worship the Lord. Therefore we said, let us now build an altar, not for burnt offering, nor for sacrifice." And they're saying that because the burnt offerings, the sacrifices, they were only supposed to be done at the tabernacle, and eventually it would be the temple. So that's understood. "But to be a witness between us and you, and between the generations after us, that we do perform the service of the Lord in his presence with our burnt offerings and sacrifices and offerings of well-being, so that your children may never say to our children in time to come, 'You have no portion in the Lord.' And we thought, if this should be said to us or to our descendants in time to come, we could say, 'Look at this copy of the altar of the Lord that our ancestors made, not for burnt offerings nor for sacrifice, but to be a witness between us and you. Far be it from us that we should rebel against the Lord and turn away this day from following the Lord by building an altar for burnt offering, grain offering, or sacrifice other than the altar of the Lord our God that stands before his tabernacle." So, in other words, the Reubenites and the Gadites in the half-tribe of Manasseh are saying exactly what I'm saying. Like, dude, it's an altar. It doesn't mean that we've turned away from the Lord. In fact, it means that we are interested in the Lord. We're worshiping the Lord. That's why we built an altar to the Lord. And they even, as I mentioned before, they go so far as to say, look, we're not doing our sacrifices here, because according to the way that the Israelites operated, I think the sacrifices were only ever supposed to happen at the one central holy place, which originally was the tabernacle and eventually became the first temple. And then when that was destroyed, the second temple, until that was destroyed. So they're saying, we're not doing anything wrong. We're not doing sacrifices where we're not supposed to do them. We just wanted an altar. What the hell is wrong with that? When the priest Phinehas and the chiefs of the congregation, the heads of the families of Israel who were with him, heard the words that the Reubenites and the Gadites and the Manassites spoke, they were satisfied. The priest Phinehas, son of Eleazar, said to the Reubenites and the Gadites and the Manassites, "Today we know that the Lord is among us, because you have not committed this treachery against the Lord. Now you have saved the Israelites from the hand of the Lord." Why was this necessary? And how would this be saving them from the hand of the Lord? I mean, they literally want to have an altar to worship Yahweh. And it has to create this whole stupid melodrama here. It's like Real Housewives of Atlanta, or, a Real Housewives of Jerusalem here, because this is just so stupid. Then the priest Phinehas, son of Eleazar, and the chiefs returned from the Reubenites and the Gadites in the land of Gilead to the land of Canaan to the Israelites and brought back word to them. The report pleased the Israelites, and the Israelites blessed God and spoke no more of making war against them to destroy the land where the Reubenites and the Gadites were settled. The Reubenites and the Gadites called the altar witness, for they said, "It is a witness between us that the Lord is God." The altar shouldn't be called witness. It should be called ignoramus, because it proves that the people following this are ignoramuses. I mean, I can't imagine anything so stupid. Imagine that I'm a Mormon and I want you to be a Mormon. So I preach to you about Mormonism and you say, yeah, I agree. I totally am down with this Mormon thing. So then after I preach this to you and convert you, you head back to your hometown, which is somewhere far away from me, and you decide you want to create an altar where you can worship Mormons. I mean, I know you don't worship Mormons, but you can worship the Mormon God and the Mormon construct of God or whatever. How is that bad? How is that possibly bad? Also, I think it's so silly because, of course, at this point in the history, this is only the God of the Israelites. No one even has tried to infer at this point that God cares at all about anyone else in the world. But nowadays, they want to tell you that God is God of all and he saved all of us with Jesus. But clearly, the idea here was that you would have one temple in one central place, which works when you have this little tiny nation called Israel. But it's completely, utterly stupid if you expect your religion to be the worldwide religion. I mean, how are you going to have just one temple for your entire religion? I mean, you can, but it's not going to help your religion grow at all. How would you like to be one of my advisors? I'm using Skepticus's memberships as a way to allow you to have a voice in the content and the direction of this channel. I hope to see you in the membership pool, and I want to hear your voice in what Skepticus is doing going forward. Moving on to Joshua 23. This is Joshua exhorts the people. A long time afterward, when the Lord had given rest to Israel from all their enemies all around, and Joshua was old and well advanced in years, Joshua summoned all Israel, their elders and heads, their judges and officers, and said to them, I am now old and well advanced in years, and you have seen all that the Lord your God has done to all these nations for your sake. For it is the Lord your God who has fought for you. No, he hasn't. The Lord your God did not fight for you. That's a lie. I have allotted to you as an inheritance for your tribes those nations that remain, along with all the nations that I have already cut off, from the Jordan to the great sea in the west. The Lord your God will push them back before you and drive them out of your sight, and you shall possess their land as the Lord your God promised you. No, he won't. No, he won't. You will conquer any land that you manage to take by force. God doesn't drive anyone out, and it's even proven repeatedly right here in your own holy text. Therefore, be very steadfast to observe and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, turning aside from it neither to the right nor to the left, so that you may not be mixed with these nations left here among you, or make mention of the names of their gods, or swear by them, or serve them, or bow yourselves down to them. But hold fast to the Lord your God, as you have done to this day. For the Lord has driven out before you great and strong nations. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. And as for you, no one has been able to withstand you to this day, except for all of the Canaanites that were in these several different places where they said they couldn't get rid of them, and the Jebusites, which they also said in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, they couldn't get rid of the Jebusites. This is a lie. It's just more retconning. One of you puts to flight 1,000, since it is the Lord your God who fights for you, as he promised you. No, that's a lie. If one of them could put to flight 1,000, they wouldn't have cared if the Reubenites and the Gadites had dropped out of the fight. But they were panicked that the Reubenites and Gadites would just settle down east of the Jordan and wouldn't keep fighting for them, because they needed manpower to take everything by force, which is exactly what you would expect to happen if there was no God there at all. Be very careful, therefore, to love the Lord your God, For if you turn back and join the survivors of these nations left here among you and intermarry with them, so that you marry their women and they yours, know assuredly that the Lord your God will not continue to drive out these nations before you, but they shall be a snare and a trap for you, a scourge on your sides and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land that the Lord your God has given you. There is just so much ignorance in that statement. If you have different ethnic groups in your country, if you really wanted to not have to keep fighting with these groups or to keep bumping up against them culturally, one of the most effective ways to do that is to intermarry with them. Now, I understand that there are concerns if you are looking at it from the purely Hebrew/Israelite perspective, because they want to maintain their religion. That's very important to them. And they're worried that if you intermarry, you'll get a mixing of the traditions. But the alternative is that you don't intermarry with them, and then you constantly always have these different ethnic groups there. But if you allow them to intermarry, in theory, over time, those ethnic groups start to kind of go away. I don't mean that they entirely go away. So like in America, for example, Black people and Latinx people and white people, etc., there's probably never going to be a time when those groups do not exist in America. But the more bigoted you are in your ideals of who can marry whom, the more you guarantee that there will be these distinct hardline groups where you have the Black folks and the Latin folks and the white folks and whatever, the Asian folks, etc. Because if there is no intermarrying going on, then they're all just going to be there in their little camps. And they're going to be looking over the fence at each other like, no, I'm not one of you. You're not one of me. And we can't intermarry. Whereas if you just let people, do what people do, which is, oh, there's a hot chick over there and she doesn't happen to be my ethnic group, and maybe I'm going to go try to get with her. Over time, you get this blending. And I know that's what they're trying to stop here, but that just ensures that you will have this constant struggle between ethnic groups, generation after generation, century after century. Whereas if you allow people to actually intermarry, then you have a much lower chance over the long haul of this constant struggle and fighting and sniping going on. And now I am about to go the way of all the earth. And you know in your hearts and souls, all of you, that not one thing has failed of all the good things that the Lord your God promised concerning you. That's such a ridiculous lie. All have come to pass for you. Not one of them has failed. Lie, lie, lie. But just as all the good things that the Lord your God promised concerning you have been fulfilled for you, so the Lord will bring upon you all the bad things until he has destroyed you from this good land that the Lord your God has given you. If you transgress the covenant of the Lord your God, which he enjoined on you, and go and serve other gods and bow down to them, then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and you shall perish quickly from the good land that he has given to you. So Joshua is basically continuing the heritage that he got from Moses of just the absolute worst resignation speech you could ever give. He's leaving, and as he's leaving, he's telling everyone that this is going to go bad, and throwing around a bunch of threats and saying all these bad things will happen to you. It's like, what a way to leave. What a way to cement your legacy right before you go out the door. And finally, we close out the book of Joshua with the last chapter, which is Joshua 24. This starts off with the tribes renew the covenant. And then Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem and summoned the elders, the heads, the judges, and the officers of Israel. And they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to all the people, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, long ago your ancestors, Terah and his sons Abraham and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates and served other gods. Then I took your father Abraham from beyond the river and led him through all the land of Canaan and made his offspring many. I gave him Isaac, and to Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. I gave Esau the hill country of Seir to possess, but Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I plagued Egypt with what I did in its midst. And afterward I brought you out. When I brought your ancestors out of Egypt, you came to the sea, and the Egyptians pursued your ancestors with chariots and horsemen to the Red Sea. When they cried out to the Lord, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians and made the sea come upon them and cover them. And your eyes saw what I did to Egypt. Afterward, you lived in the wilderness a long time. Then I brought you to the land of the Amorites, who lived on the other side of the Jordan. They fought with you, and I handed them over to you, and you took possession of their land, and I destroyed them before you. The retconning. I want to mention really quick, I know I keep going on about this, but, if you have a chronicle of some old-timey history, right? Of course, when one group conquers another, they're going to talk in braggadocious tones. And they'll be like, God was on our side and we drove everyone out. I don't mind that because I understand this is the language of conquest. What's disgusting to me about it is that in the Hebrew Bible, this is laid out as not just the language of conquest. It's laid out as the language that is granted, or it's laid out as the language that is blessed and commanded by your almighty God. And that's what makes it disgusting. If there was some chronicle about how King Richard the Lionheart, destroyed the Scottish people and slayed everyone and subdued the land, which of course didn't happen. But if that was the chronicle, I'd say, okay, whatever, King Richard won some battles and he had his people write down some very hyperbolic descriptions of what happened. And that's just the way that the victors write their history. That's fine. But that would be different than saying, and this is the divine answer of Yahweh. And these are the divine commands of Yahweh. That's what makes this so sick. And that's also, I think, what makes it so sad when they sit here and try to retcon all of this in their own book to make it sound like Yahweh did all this, when in fact, it was the Israelites who did it. That's just plain and simple. Then King Balak, son of Zippor of Moab, set out to fight against Israel. He sent and invited Balaam, son of Beor, to curse you. But I would not listen to Balaam. Therefore he blessed you. So I rescued you out of his hand. Again, retconning. Yahweh did listen to Balaam, and Balaam listened to Yahweh. And Balaam never cursed them. He didn't curse them because Yahweh told them not to, which again makes me wonder, what if Balaam had cursed them? Would it have hurt the Israelites? Was God so weak that he couldn't stand up to a curse put on them by Balaam? And then it says, therefore he blessed you. So I rescued you out of his hand. Rescued you out of the hand of Balaam. Balaam listened to God. Balaam was literally following God's orders. This is such a stupid retcon. When you went over the Jordan and came to Jericho, the citizens of Jericho fought against you, as well as the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I handed them over to you. No, you didn't. I sent swarms of hornets ahead of you that drove out before you the two kings of the Amorites. It was not by your sword or by your bow. That's really interesting that that's there, because a few books ago, many chapters ago, there was a verse where it said that he would drive these people out by sending swarms of hornets. And I remember in that episode, I said, I don't remember there ever being anything in the subsequent narrative where it says that he drove people out with swarms of hornets. And there wasn't. There wasn't anything in the narrative about that. But now we get this thing thrown in here at the end. I feel like this is them trying to, neaten, dot the I's and cross the T's and put bows on things. And somebody said, oh, that's right. We had a verse way back in Deuteronomy or Numbers that said that he would drive people out with hornets. So we need to do something to account for that, because we never wrote it into the rest of the stories because it didn't happen. So now they're doing this whole little retcon speech. And now they're saying, oh, I sent swarms of hornets ahead of you that drove out before you the two kings of the Amorites, even though nothing was said to that effect when we read that in the narrative before. Yeah. I gave you a land on which you had not labored, in towns that you had not built, and you live in them. You eat the fruit of the vineyards and olive yards that you did not plant. Yeah, except for the ones that you were told to burn to the ground and then apparently had to rebuild, if you wanted to live there. Now, therefore, revere the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Now, if you are unwilling to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. There's the famous, so many Christians have that above their door or something, or, crocheted or, needle point or something on the wall. It says, as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. But this paragraph here is very odd because it says, now, if you are unwilling to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve. It says you can serve the region beyond the river or the gods of the Amorites, etc. But the previous 4 books have been filled with threats and have been filled with explanations of how God literally killed scores of his own people who weren't worshiping him in just the right way. So after all of this death brought from Yahweh upon your own people, and after all of the threats, the repeated curses and threats that will come down upon you if you don't follow all of the Lord's commandments, then you get this line that says, well, if you're unwilling to serve the Lord, then choose who you will. That's not a choice. If I sit there and give you threat after threat after threat, and if I kill a bunch of your friends and family people who don't follow my orders, and then if I, after all of that, say to you, oh, well, you can choose who you want to listen to. No, that is ridiculous. There is no choice in coercion. Then the people answered, far be it from us that we should forsake the Lord to serve other gods, for it is the Lord our God who brought us and our ancestors up from the land of Egypt out of the house of slavery, and who did those great signs in our sight. He protected us along the way that we went and among all the peoples through whom we passed. And the Lord drove out before us all the peoples. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. The Amorites who lived in the land. Therefore, we also will serve the Lord, for he is our God. This reads like a people who are saying this because they're scared to death. Of course we're going to repeat back this crap because otherwise they're going to be cursed and they're going to be killed by their God. But Joshua said to the people, you cannot serve the Lord, for he is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgressions or your sins. But Joshua said to the people, you cannot serve the Lord, for he is a holy God. Why can't they serve the holy God? Why? This is just like the way when right before Moses died, he said some really dark, nasty shit to people in the book. And now Joshua is doing the exact same thing. You cannot serve the Lord, for he's a holy God. He's like, no, you can't serve a holy God, you little stupid peons. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgressions or your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, then he will turn and do you harm and consume you after having done you good. Again, threats. So there's no choice here. And the people said to Joshua, no, we will serve the Lord. We will serve the Lord because we're scared as hell, because there's nothing but threats and death brought down upon us. Then Joshua said to the people, you are witnesses against yourselves that you have chosen the Lord to serve him. And they said, we are witnesses. They said, we are witnesses. I get this picture of them almost like being beaten. And every time they get beaten, they're like, we are witnesses. We are witnesses. We are witnesses. Like, yeah, thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another? He said, then put away the foreign gods that are among you and incline your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel. This sentence is very odd to me because it implies that even at this point, after having gone through the wilderness for 40 years and after having finally conquered, everyone and put everyone to the sword in the Holy Land, and now they've been in the Holy Land for a while, he's saying to put away the foreign gods that are among you and incline your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel. Were they worshiping foreign gods again? I mean, I'm not saying that maybe they weren't, but there's nothing in the narrative that says that they had gone back to worshiping foreign gods. But in this paragraph, he starts off by saying, you cannot serve the Lord, for he's a holy God. Well, weren't they serving him already? And then he says, put away the foreign gods that are among you. I mean, did they have a bunch of foreign gods among them? I mean, maybe, but I can't assume from this sentence that they had gone back to worshiping foreign gods again, because in this diatribe, he's already said a bunch of stuff that we know is not true according to the prior narrative. So I have no reason to believe that based on this sentence alone that they had started worshiping foreign gods again. It just sounds like a dude who's anxious to browbeat the hell out of people right before he dies, just like Moses did. The people said to Joshua, "The Lord our God we will serve, and him we will obey." Yeah, or else you'll be killed by God. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day and made statutes and ordinances for them at Shechem. Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak in the sanctuary of the Lord. Joshua said to all the people, "See, this stone shall be a witness against us, for it has heard all the words of the Lord that he spoke to us. Therefore it shall be a witness against you if you deal falsely with your God." So Joshua sent the people away to their inheritances. This last thing about the stone, I don't know, am I supposed to imply that they carved the covenant in the stone? Because it doesn't say that. It just says he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak in the sanctuary of the Lord, and said, "This will be a witness." I mean, a big stone that has nothing on it, that has not been carved or anything. How is that a witness to anything? Unless we're supposed to imply that the stone had the covenant carved into it, I guess. But that's not what the text says. Death of Joshua and Eliezer. Good riddance. After these things, Joshua, son of Nun, did you know he's the son of Nun? You got to remember, he's the son of Nun. The servant of the Lord died, being 110 years old. They buried him in his own inheritance at Timnath-Serah, which is in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. Mount Gash. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but Mount Gash. Okay, I'm just going to leave that right over here. Mount Gash. Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua and had known all the work that the Lord did for Israel. The bones of Joseph, which the Israelites had brought up from Egypt, were buried at Shechem in the portion of ground that Jacob had bought from the children of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of money. It became an inheritance of the descendants of Joseph. Eliezer, son of Aaron, died, and they buried him at Gibeah, the town of his son Phinehas, which had been given him in the hill country of Ephraim. Thus endeth the book of Joshua. Once again, another book of just massive blood and contradictions and Jewish Christian effery. But none of that's a surprise at this point, is it? So at the next episode, I'll be doing my synopsis of Joshua, as I do now every time I finish one of these books, where I just kind of go through all the key points as quickly as possible. And then we'll be going into Judges. Judges also has all kinds of fun stuff. So they just keep on coming. So next time you tune in to God-Free Bible Study, assuming that you're watching these in order, which isn't always true, right? But if you're watching these in order, the next time we tune into God-Free Bible Study, we will be starting in on Judges, getting 2 books now past the Pentateuch. Thank you again to all my members, especially. You guys are deeply appreciated and are giving me life. If I've said anything here that's incorrect in any way, Yahweh can always chime in, but he never does. I hope to see each and every one of you on future episodes, but until I do, lo, I say unto you, stay skeptical.